one specifically thing she said that was going to really impact white people. Jack up interest rates, jack up debt, print money to provide housing, and everyone pays 30% for housing.
You ever hear a politician pitch an idea that sounds so nice, so warm and fuzzy, that your brain almost turns off for a second, and then the part of you that pays bills snaps back like, wait, how would that actually work? Second, yeah, that's exactly the vibe with this whole New York housing agenda clip that's been making the rounds, where the answer to a brutally complicated housing crisis is basically, don't worry, we'll just print money and cap what you pay. If you're already rolling your eyes, you're my kind of person. And if you're not, stick with me because this gets wild fast. Also, real quick, if you like breakdowns like this where we cut through the performative nonsense and talk real world consequences, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next one. And drop a comment while you're at it because I need to know if you think this stuff is genius or totally delusional. So here's the setup. Joe Rogan is watching this clip of World Weaver, who's laying out an idea for collective housing. The concept sounds like it's trying to be morally airtight. Housing is owned by some collective system, and people pay 30% of their income to live there. If your income is zero, you pay zero. If you're making $500,000 a year, you pay 30% of that. And the government makes sure it works financially. Cash flows, subsidies, the whole thing. Now, on paper, I get why that sounds appealing. It's simple. It's clean. It feels fair. It's like one of those motivational posters that says equality system. Equality and big letters over a photo of a sunrise. But then the interviewer asks the only question that matters. How does the federal government afford to start subsidizing rental housing costs? And the answer, T-equality answer, and is the part where you either laugh or cry, is basically the federal government prints money.
This one's what she wants to, kill real estate value. That's her idea. Like, she wants to, literally, to make housing more affordable, she wants to kill real estate value.
It's an inelastic good. You can't.
Well, it's moronic.
Oh, this woman.
Listen to this lady. Listen to this.
And she has like $1 million house?
Her mom does.
Oh.
Well, of course.
Which the housing is owned by a collective and people are paying 30% of their income in order to live in their housing. If your income is zero, you pay zero. If your income is $500,000 a year, you're paying 30% of that. And the government is providing the government is the sort of owner, or not even the owner. The government doesn't have to be the owner, but the government is what's making sure all of that sort of works in cash flows.
The debt to GDP ratio right now is the highest since World War II. So how can the federal government also afford to start subsidizing rental housing costs?
Oh, okay. So we're doing that. We're doing the just print it answer and print it thing. The money printer go burr plan. TH print it goes burr. Plan, dot, that's the foundation. Not goes burr. Plan, not here's a funding mechanism. Not here's a supply strategy. Not here's how we'll get private development back online. Just printed money. And Rogan's reaction is exactly what you'd expect from someone who's allergic to magical thinking. He's not politely disagreeing. He's calling it moronic. He's saying this is like someone improvising policy on the spot, like they're doing stand-up, except the punchline is your rent going up, your groceries costing more, and your city becoming unlivable. Because here's the thing. Housing is not like some random consumer product you can just crank out with wishful thinking. It's an inelastic good. You can't snap your fingers and create thousands of units overnight. You can't feel your way into more apartments. You can't virtue signal a building into existence. Housing takes time, materials, labor, permits, financing, and this is the big one, incentives.
The federal government prints money. The federal government can provide money for us.
So it's by printing money.
Sure.
That's her idea. Print money. Federal government print money to provide housing, jack up interest rates, jack up in debt, print money to provide housing.
And that's where these proposals always face plant because they're built like a children's story book, not storybook. And then the government made it fair, storybook.fair, and everyone lived happily ever after. Meanwhile, in real life, the moment you start capping returns and turning the whole market into a government-managed payment scheme, the people who build housing, developers fair, developers, investors, lend developers, investors, and or start investors, and start backing away like you just coughed in their face. You want to know what happens when you create a system where high earners pay 30% of income, start off higher, and low earners pay nothing. You create a situation where the program becomes a magnet for demand and a repellent for supply. Demand skyrockets because, who wouldn't want guaranteed housing at a fixed share of income? Because income and supply shrinks because you're telling builders, hey, we're going to control the upside. Income, and by the way, the government is going to be deeply involved in your cash flow. And even if you personally love government, even if you trust your favorite party with your entire soul, you have to admit bureaucracy is not exactly famous for being fast, efficient, or predictable. Then you add the print money funding mechanism. And it gets even worse because inflation doesn't care about your intentions. Inflation doesn't check your Instagram activism. Inflation is the most cold, petty, UNF petty, and/or-giving force in the economy. It's like gravity. You can scream, but it's for housing, petty, and in the way down. Gravity doesn't care. The more money you flood into the system without increasing real supply, the more you bid up prices. And housing is already the kind of market where money sloshing around causes chaos. You pump extra cash into demand. Subsidies, easy money, printed money, and what happens? Land gets more expensive. Construction materials get more expensive. Labor gets more expensive. Financing gets messier. And then the people you swore you were helping are standing there like, wait, why is everything more expensive? It's the oldest trick in politics. Promise people relief, then accidentally make the root problem worse. And that's why critics are hammering this. Not because they hate compassion, not because they want poor people homeless, but because they've seen how these simple solutions explode when they collide with the real world.
First of all, why are you talking to me in a hoodie? What mental illness is that? Like, how dare you? First of all, you look like powder. You look like, first of all, get a blowout, throw some mascara. Like, are we professionals anymore? You're in a Costco hoodie and a t-shirt. Like, what are we doing?
Well, they've confronted her about these ideas and she breaks down crying.
Now, there's also this side drama in the clip where Rogan and Whitney Cummings go after Weaver's appearance. She's in a hoodie in a casual setting, and they're like, why are you talking to me in a hoodie? Honestly, that part is funny in a roast comedy way, but it's also a distraction. The hoodie doesn't matter. The question isn't, is she dressed like a professional? The question is she thinking like someone who understands incentives, supply constraints, and how inflation works? Because you can wear a three-piece suit and still pitch nonsense, and you can wear a hoodie and be right. The clothing is not the point. The point is the idea. And the idea, when you strip it down, is this. The government is going to intervene heavily in housing and set payment rules. And if the math doesn't work, they'll print what they need. That's not a plan. That's a coping mechanism. And this is where the rich guilt angle comes in. Rogan says a lot of these wokies come from rich families, feel guilty, and then try to solve inequality with sweeping moral policies.
Her training was UCB. Like, she's just improvising an idea. No, the government does that. She's not even making eye contact. Like, damn.
Well, a lot of these wokies, they come from rich families. They feel bad about being privileged.
Yeah.
And one specifically thing she said that was going to really impact white people.
What is fascinating about that is that because I think she believes she's coming from the moral high ground, I think this is what's really sort of... It is someone who I feel like is similar to you, and then I'm like, I was as liberal. I had blue hair, you guys. Like,
yeah, I remember when you had blue hair.
I rescue pit bulls. Like, it doesn't get any more liberal than me. Like, it doesn't get any more. But the whole idea with being liberal is like...
Now, you don't have to like the word woke to understand the dynamic. It's a real thing. People who are comfortable often feel a genuine emotional need to do something big to fix societal problems. And in that emotional state, the policies become less about outcomes and more about signals. It becomes performative problem solving. It's not about whether it works. It's about how it makes you look for proposing it. Whitney Cummings nails this when she talks about hypocrisy. How politics turns into this weird maze of we believe in this unless it conflicts with that, and my body, my choice. Except when we decide it's not. And whether you agree with her exact examples or not, the broader point is solid. A lot of modern politics is built on vibes and moral posture, not consistency or practicality. And housing is the worst place to do vibes-based policy. Because housing isn't a tweet. It isn't a slogan. It's a physical thing. It's steel, concrete, wood, plumbing, and permits. It's geography and zoning and interest rates. You can't guilt trip a housing shortage into disappearing.
Deal with being liberal is like, you had me at, we're not racist, everyone's equal.
Right.
But, diversity, but then it turns into diversity.
Communism.
Diversity, but not diversity of thought.
Right.
Right? The hypocrisy of it got, and I think that as comics, we're people who, I may not be an expert in politics, but I'm an expert on hypocrisy. When you grow up around alcoholics who say, I love you, and then their behaviors in Congress, you look for patterns of hypocrisy. That's just what we're wired to do. So it just started to just be like, hold on, we don't believe in gender, but we need a female president. You're like, huh? And then it's like, my body, my choice. Unless it's a baby that needs a vaccine for hepatitis B.
Now, let's talk about the bigger political ripple here, because it's not just Rogan. The transcript brings in Bill Maher, too. And Maher's is basically waving a giant flare in the sky saying, Democrats, if you make this kind of person the face of the party, you're going to get wrecked. He's saying New York isn't just some random city. It's the media capital, the financial capital, a cultural bellwether. And he's right. New York is the place where political narratives get exported to the rest of the country. If New York becomes a walking commercial for, look what happens when you elect ideologues, that doesn't stay in New York. That becomes a national ad campaign free of charge for the opposition.
I mean, I read these 74% are for democratic socialism. Only 16% favor capitalism. Is this going to be a country that I don't recognize in 5 to 10 years if we don't have these two pillars? If we don't, where are the Democrats going with this? If Mondami is the face of the Democrats on the East Coast and Katie Porter is the face on the West Coast, I don't know if that's great politically for that party.
And Mom makes an underrated point. Even if a mayor can't single-handedly usher in socialism, they can absolutely create conditions that swing national perception. If a city visibly deteriorates, crime goes up, services go down, costs explode, and people don't do nuance. They don't go, well, actually, the mayor only controlled X% the budget, and there were macroeconomic headwinds. No, they go, that ideology failed. And then you've got a political problem, because working class voters and moderates do not want experiments. They want stability. They want competence. They want a city that functions. This is the thing activists don't like to hear. Elections are not won by the most passionate people online. They're won by the exhausted middle, the people who don't tweet, don't argue, and don't attend rallies. They just want life to be affordable and predictable. When they hear print money for housing, they don't hear compassion. They hear chaos.
Chaos. New York is New York. It's definitely it's the media capital, the financial capital. It is a bellwether like no other city is in this country. So don't tell me that who the mayor of New York is doesn't matter.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second. Do you think, let's say, on the seize the means of production, do you think that the mayor, that one person, if he is a democratic socialist, do you think that he would have the power and influence to be able to usher in socialism?
He definitely has the power and influence to elect J.D. Vance or whoever is the Republican candidate next time. It is a walking commercial for the Republican Party.
And you know what's extra frustrating? There are serious ways to tackle housing, but they're boring. They don't fit on a bumper sticker. They require trade-offs, like, for example, zoning reform, streamlining approvals so projects don't take a decade, reducing the insane regulatory burden that makes building in major cities ridiculously expensive, encouraging density where it makes sense, fixing transit so people can live farther out without losing their lives to commuting, and incentivizing new construction without turning it into a punitive, politically controlled system. But that stuff doesn't give you the moral dopamine hit of we're going to guarantee housing and make the rich pay. So instead, we get fantasy economics, free grocery stores, free buses, free everything. And listen, everyone likes free stuff. I like free stuff. You like free stuff. But the adult question is always who pays, how, and what happens next. Because when the cost is hidden or delayed, it doesn't vanish. It just comes back meaner later, like a credit card bill you ignored for 6 months. And the bill always lands on ordinary people first. Prices rising, services degrading, taxes increasing, businesses leaving, jobs shrinking. The ideologues don't feel it first. The rest of us do. Now, The transcript goes hard on socialism as a broader theme. USSR, North Korea, Venezuela, the usual examples. And look, you can debate historical context all day. You can argue that wasn't real socialism, or that it was authoritarianism, or that this time would be different. And people always do. That's the eternal pitch. Trust us, this time it won't be a mess.
And on the other side, you have the guy running in New York, Mandami, right? Okay, who's like a straight up communist. I mean, he is. He talks about, the things that communists say. I mean, he wants free grocery stores, free buses.
I want him to win.
You want him to win?
Yeah. I think every 20 years or so.
Wait.
We need every 20 years or so, we need a conspicuous, confined experiment with socialism so we can crack it up again. Socialist slogan used to be, workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. The new socialist slogan is, trust us, this time it won't be a mess.
But even if you set aside the biggest historical arguments, you don't need to go to the Soviet Union to understand what happens when you ignore incentives and try to centrally control complex markets. You can look at smaller scale examples. Price caps causing shortages, heavy regulation, shrinking supply, mismanaged public projects turning into money pits. And housing is especially sensitive to this because it's a supply-constrained market. You can't regulate your way into abundance. You can only build your way into abundance. Everything else is just moving the pain around. And here's where it gets really interesting. These policies often end up helping the wrong people. The well-connected, the ones who know how to navigate bureaucracy, the ones who have the time and paperwork skills to get into programs, the ones with the right connections. Meanwhile, the working person who is just barely above the cutoff gets squeezed, too rich to qualify for help, too poor to compete in the private market that's now more expensive and constrained. So, you don't end up with fairness. You end up with a two-tier system. Insiders with subsidized stability and outsiders fighting over scraps. And if you think that doesn't create resentment, you haven't met human beings. Not.
The new socialist slogan is, trust us, this time it won't be a mess. So, when the post-war labor government in Britain was about to get started, one of their leading lights was a socialist named Nurian Bevan. He said, what could go wrong? He said, we have a nation bedded on coal, surrounded by fish. It would take an organizational genius to have a shortage of either. In 3 years, they had a shortage of both. That's socialism.
So Rogan's critique, under all the comedy and bluntness, is basically, you can't run a city on improvisation. You can't solve structural problems with emotionally satisfying slogans. Print money is not a solution. It's an escape hatch. And the escape hatch leads straight into inflation and dysfunction. Mars warning is if Democrats hitch themselves to the most radical-sounding faces, they'll lose the people who actually decide elections. Not because those voters are evil, because those voters are practical. They don't want experiments. They want results. And then you have Whitney Cummings pointing at the cultural hypocrisy that fuels all of this. The need to signal moral superiority while ignoring contradictions. Put it all together and you get a picture that should make anyone nervous, regardless of party. A politics that increasingly rewards the performance of solutions over the delivery of outcomes. Now, I'm not saying the housing crisis isn't real. It is. It's brutal. It's crushing families. It's turning cities into playgrounds for the ultra-rich and leaving everyone else to commute from another planet. And people are desperate for relief, which makes them vulnerable to simplistic promises. But that's exactly why bad policy is dangerous. Because when people are hurting, they'll grab onto anything that sounds like hope. And if that hope is built on print money and cap payments, the crash later is going to be uglier than the problem you started with. So here's the question I want you to sit with. Do you want leaders who make you feel good in the moment, or leaders who can explain the boring, unsexy, realistic path to improvement? Because the boring path is usually the only one that works. All right, your turn. Do you think Rogan and Ma are overreacting, or are they calling it exactly like it is? And do you think 30% of income housing is compassionate or a fast track to supply collapse and inflation? Drop your take in the comments, because I read them, and I'm genuinely curious where people land on this. And if you want more videos that break down political clips without the PR gloss, hit like, subscribe, And share this with that one friend who still thinks printing money is a cheat code. Reality always collects. The only question is who gets stuck with the bill.